Harris is quite simply one of the most recognisable faces in our profession. She's worked in administration for over 30 years, and she has been the lead of some truly notable networks, starting her own network firstly, where she works at Discovery Health with Suzanne Engelbrecht. Then she has launched the Panzer network, which is for assistance right the way across South Africa. I believe that that's about to launch in Cape Town as well as Johannesburg. And she has also put together networks in Mauritius and for various other companies where she has consulted on what is the best way to do that. For the very first time, when we get to Wellington in March, she's going to be talking about how you set up an internal assistant network in a hybrid environment. And I thought that it would be well worth doing a quick interview with her for admin chat so that she can talk to you about how you do that. If the conversations I've had with those of you that have internal networks are anything to go by, this is an issue that you are really needing answers on. And so I think you'll find this hugely entertaining and interesting. Please join me in welcoming Cathy Harris.
Cathy Harris, hello. How wonderful to see you.
It's such a pleasure to be in your company again, Lucy Brazier.
Oh, always wonderful to see you. And I am so excited to talk to you about this session that you're going to be doing in Wellington, and hopefully to impart some knowledge as well, because I think the topic that you're covering, which is the assistant network in a hybrid world, is just so relevant. You know, every time we talk to companies about internal networks and how they're set up and how they can go about doing that and what really has impact, they come back to us now and say, we understand that stuff, although obviously we've learned lots of Cathy, but what would be really helpful is to understand how that works in a hybrid world. So talk to me a little bit about why you feel that it's such a timely and relevant topic for now.
Well, we've entered a new era of hybrid work, and hybrid is a new word, if you want to call it that. First it was remote, and then it was agile, and now it's hybrid. So hybrid is the new half work in person, half work remote. So we need to understand the dynamics around that, which essentially means, yes, that we're home-based, office-based, 2 days, 3 days in the office, and the other time at another location. The recent shift from remote working has driven us to reimagine how business and teams operate, and how we meet in person when we meet virtually. And different tasks call for different scenarios, right? Navigating and deciding how these various tasks will be initiated is key. Which projects can we work on our own? Which do we need intervention and collaboration and specific participation? And which tasks will require interactions, which will include all of these scenarios? And this is the challenges of this new hybrid working model. And as management assistants, we have to navigate around both from a physical collaboration to online collaboration, which is very different. The dynamics are different. And there are also emotional aspects that affect us in both scenarios. So it is a bit of a challenge. Then for us as a management assistant, we need to stay engaged. We need to stay relevant and connected. It's so necessary, more now than ever. And having access to the right resources, technology, and team connections is vital. We live in an age of quick access, you'll all agree, where we want a quick turnaround, we want quick responses, we don't want to wait for information and decisions anymore. And we need to be able to have it at the tip of our fingers. Now, in the age of technology and AI, that does offer us some of those things. But we need to know how to secure our skills to future-proof ourselves in order to remain relevant and head into this future world of work. So
yeah,
sorry.
No, go on, Cathy.
So my session, which I'm very excited about, will be a collaboration of interaction and ideas to ensure that a hybrid model has a positive impact on the way we will be connecting in the future, what it looks like and how it will impact management assistant communities, specifically your internal network, and how to build and develop our profession around this new way of working within our professions, with our peers, and going forth into a future that holds a lot of promise for us and that is relevant and equips us with the right skills.
Definitely.
I hope that answers your question. It was a mouthful.
It surely does. Yes, it really does. I mean, I think if we get back to basics, when we start talking about the reasons why we set up internal networks, it's usually because we have assistants that are working on their own and who aren't sharing best practice, and because there is no way for the business to understand how to roll out new initiatives, and really making sure that the assistants are all trained in the same way and that the communication and the collaboration is good. I think, it's and all of those things, of course, we know are phenomenal, but when it comes to having to do that in hybrid land and keep the connection going when people are isolated for 2 or 3 days a week, where they're at home and they're just tapping away on the computer, so that there is that connection piece. And to me, that's central to it, don't you think? That connection piece.
Absolutely, it's central. Staying connected and being able to navigate how we collaborate,
Yes,
is key.
Yes. And so you mentioned some of the challenges there in adapting those networks to the hybrid environment. How challenging is it?
Well, the truth is we are still navigating and experimenting to see what is going to give us the best outcomes. Understanding what components of an internal network work well for in-person initiatives and what works well for virtual initiatives is the first part of this journey. And here it will be different and bespoke depending on the culture of your organization, the kind of business unit you're working in, who you work with, and things like that. And also to ensure it remains inclusive and accessible to your entire management assistant community. And I can say that there are many advantages associated with the hybrid network. As we can easily categorize initiatives at work that we want to access and learn from in our own time, within our own rules, and when we're able to access it, and then how we can be better at ensuring inclusive participation, because you don't want to work in isolation. You don't want to work on your own completely, but obviously there are things that you can do on your own in your own time. And of course, at the end of the day, we want to ensure that managing an internal network is a lot less cumbersome and much more productive, accessible, and rewarding for everyone, so that everyone will want to be part of, contribute to, and gain information and knowledge from it.
Definitely. And so what, in your view, are the essential skills and qualities that administrative professionals should cultivate if they want to thrive in this hybrid work environment?
Well, for me, there are definitely 3 words, and they're all associated with other skills, if I can put it that way. The first one is collaboration, and with collaboration comes the ability and the skill to be able to lead and communicate with purpose. So you can't collaborate or define your own ideas and not expect feedback. There has to be a two-way connection. There has to be collaboration and input from everybody. And the other thing for me is adaptability. Adaptability is an agile skill. You've got to be agile. You've got to be able to be flexible. And it's a skill that we need to have in this new world of work, essential to thrive in this evolving landscape. And my next top skill is creativity, because we're in a space where we're not quite sure what's going to work, what doesn't work. So it's a bit of an experimental adventure. And for that, you're going to have to become creative. You've got to have to think outside the box. You've got to become more of a critical thinker, and you need to latch onto your leadership skills to be able to evoke conversations that are going to add value to your internal network to get to the output that you're wanting. So, and of course, ensuring that it's always inclusive, not just by invitation. And what I mean by that is you're not just going to invite your community to be part of. You need to make sure they become inclusive, that you are empowering your community, and you ensure that they contribute and engage with all the initiatives you have on hand. And each one of these top 3 skills, as I mentioned before, has an associated skills relative to them. And they can't work in isolation of each other. They all need to work together for the greater good as a whole.
Fantastic. And you mentioned leadership there. And obviously, if you've got an internal network, you are going to need somebody to step forward and to lead it. And that's something that assistants aren't terribly keen on, really, is it? They prefer to stay in the background a little bit. So what advice have you got for people who are needing to step into leadership so that they can build and maintain a really strong and resilient internal assistant network?
Well, the value of any internal network cannot be underestimated. What the pandemic did was force a change of the way on how we work. And it questioned leaders, our executives, to relook how to be more productive. But at the same time, it's created an opportunity for the leader within us as management assistants to relook how we can add value and how we can become part of the legacy that we can take forward into the future. However, I have personally experienced that organizations that do not have an internal assistant network before or after the pandemic have assistants who continue to work in isolation of each other, where the leadership is poor, perhaps, where teamwork and collaboration are very limited, and in some cases, it becomes exclusive only to a few, and where silos are created and a them-they culture breeds contempt, distrust, misalignment of information, and really a certain kind of inequality amongst assistants, which is not healthy. So leadership is key. You know, you've got to have someone who's willing to go the extra mile. It's a resilient and strong internal network leadership is needed to manage and collaborate with all the assistants. I mean, the return of investment is huge, not just for the individual or the individuals who choose to lead an internal network, but for everyone who gets involved, because you develop and grow. You understand how to take your leadership skills to the next level. And also you discover a lot about yourself, you know, in the process. So you as a leader will question why your company has not yet embarked on a journey like this. And what is stopping you from starting an internal network, taking that step forward? You know, I amaze myself when I look at an internal network like OPSA. It took one lady out of, I think they have over 600 assistants in that organization, took one lady to bring them all together on an international basis, because they're all over. Basically, they're all over Africa. And that's all it takes. It takes one person to put your foot in the door and gather the troops and bring them forward, everyone who is like-minded, to embark on this journey.
Yeah,
and
so impressive. So impressive. And I know that you yourself, you know, you started off as an assistant that just saw that really at Discovery, where you work, it needed an internal network. And you and Suzanne Engelbrecht went on this journey to really enhance the culture of the assistants at Discovery. And goodness me, how many years later, it's still one of the leading networks for assistants in the world, I would say.
Yeah, right now we have a new work group, and they are struggling to get onto their feet. And I do want to say, if you are wanting to start an internal network, beware if you start off on the wrong footing. In other words, if you decide you want to have an inclusive little committee, because you are going to get so much backlash from the other assistants. They will see you and your little team as the enemy. So it's very important to understand that you need to start off on the right footing, because to fix it, if you have started off wrong, is going to be so much more difficult if you had been given the expert advice in the beginning, you know, because you want your network to be sustainable. You want that route, you want the foundation to be right, so it's established, you know, and solid from the beginning.
Very definitely. You know, I think, Cathy, that The concept of hybrid working can be really daunting for some people, particularly when it comes to working out how you set up an internal network. So could you give me a couple of practical strategies for creating this productive internal assistant network in this new reality?
In this new reality, I would like to encourage more of the younger assistants to think about this. Don't be held back by the fact that you're not perhaps an assistant to executive or a CEO, or anything like that. The fact that you're in the profession makes you eligible because you're adding to the value of your profession. So every great internal network has started with only a couple of assistants who have a passion for servant leadership, to empower others and share knowledge. That adds value, not just for themselves, and that's important, not just for yourself. So you cannot be in this new way of working just for yourself to get a credit. It's a team effort, right from the word go. Because and why I say the younger generation, because they've adapted far quicker. They've been born into this new technology we have. They're going to understand hybrid models better than perhaps an older assistant who's worked around very traditional ways of working. So I encourage the young people to come forward, but I also encourage the wisdom from the older assistants to bring to the table. You need the synergy of everyone to come together, and you need to come together with an open mind. My recommendation is always to first seek expert advice and collaborate with the community as to what their expectation will be of an internal network. What do they want to get out of it? And ultimately, how will it benefit everyone, including your organization? A strategy session to lay the groundwork is essential. And then we take it from there. The hybrid world is here to stay, and we need to ensure we have the right structures in place to navigate and remain adaptable to the changes that these things present to us.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up the fact that you don't have to be the EA to a CEO or to other C-suite. You know, some of the most successful networks in the world, notably the GAIN network at BlackRock, was started by Simone White, who, if you were to ask her who her executive was, nobody would have heard of them. They certainly weren't C-suite or in the leadership team. And she just looked at it and thought, it isn't right. The assistants aren't structured in the same way as everybody else in the business. And really, they need structure so that the business is able to get the proper ROI out of our function. So she went away and did it. And it's taken her 3-4 years, I think, to get it done properly. I mean, obviously, they had the network going, but to get the restructure done so that the assistants are functioning in the same way as any other function in the business. But really, it's a great example that as to how all it takes is one person who looks at it and goes, well, this isn't working most effectively for the business. How can we go and set something up so that the assistants are working more as a cohort than individually and siloed across the business?
Exactly. And I was actually going to mention Simone because she comes to mind every time I talk about you not having to be the most important person in the office. Well, we are all important, but you know what I'm saying? You don't have to associate leadership with a title, you know? So it's very important. And it's nice when it happens that way, because I myself, I've been an assistant for well over 40 years. I learn more from my younger counterparts and the younger community where I work than I do from the older assistants, honestly, because they come with fresh ideas, fresh suggestions, a different viewpoint. They sort of throw it around and say, well, haven't you thought about it this way? So it really gives you an opportunity to enhance your thinking in as far as expanding it rather than containing it to traditional ways of working. And the thought came across my mind when I think of hybrid. I mean, the scenarios, just getting back to that, the scenarios are different. Collaborating online, which is restrictive to a large degree, because you have to wait for someone to finish talk before you can, or you have to raise your hand. And by the time they get to you, you may have forgotten what you want to say. Whereas in-person collaboration is more effective. So these are the things we have to navigate and the challenges we have to ensure we get optimal outcome for whatever initiative or project we need to work on, and things like that. So everything has its place.
Agreed. And so finally, Cathy, what are you most excited about as far as your session is concerned in March in Wellington? And what are the key takeaways that you're hoping that the assistants will take away from your presentation?
I think the most important thing that I'm excited about is really about the interactive session, which will provoke an opportunity for the delegates to say exactly what it is they want from an internal network. A new, fresh look, a new perspective, you know, on how to take the whole concept of internal networks forward. You know, the challenges that we face, of course, and how to collaborate for solutions around those challenges. I'm really looking forward to that part, and I'm hoping that all the delegates are going to be participating actively, you know, with me on that. And I think the biggest takeaway I'm hoping is that every single company represented at Executive Live in Wellington is going to say, yes, yes, we need that. We want that. We absolutely need it, because the benefits associated with it is so immense. And I always get so excited when I share it, because there's so many things you can do that are going to just highlight your career, expand your knowledge base, and grow you personally and developmentally. I am so excited. I cannot wait.
I can't wait to see you in person, Cathy Harris. It's been way too long, and I shall see you in Wellington in March. But thank you so much for your time today. This has been a real powerhouse session. I think the people who are watching will have had a huge amount out of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. Have a wonderful day further, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.